Two caveats at the outset. First, totalitarianism is a phenomenon of the 20th century. It is incorrect to speak of totalitarian states in the 5th century BCE or the 16th century CE. Second, totalitarianism not only emerges but also dies in the 20th century. Today, only North Korea can be called totalitarian, and even that is no more than a remnant. The essence of totalitarianism was expressed most concisely and accessibly by Benito Mussolini, who created the first totalitarian state. He wrote, "Everything within the state, nothing outside the state, nothing against the state." In practice, this means that in a totalitarian state there can be no opposition whatsoever, neither systemic nor non-systemic. There is no freedom of speech and no competitive elections, because all these things are potentially dangerous to the state itself. If journalists write about the failures of rulers, and ordinary people freely discuss those rulers, if some politicians try to convince the public that the authorities are ineffective and wrong, how will that end? Certainly not well. Hence, there must be only one party, headed by a strong leader, often called the leader or the chief. He is strong because he is ready to use violence to suppress any dissent and any independent thought. The stronger the leader, the more ruthless he is. A defining feature of a totalitarian regime is the presence of an official ideology. This ideology explains everything: who we are, where we come from, where we are going, what we should do, who our enemies and allies are, what the meaning of our lives is, and so on. All aspects of life must be subordinated to the official ideology. One may read, watch, write, speak, and think only what is ideologically correct. But how can millions and tens of millions of people be made to live in accordance with what the state prescribes? Two things are required: propaganda and violence. Totalitarian regimes place great emphasis on propaganda. In kindergarten, school, and university, across all channels and frequencies, only ideologically approved information is broadcast. History, current socio-political processes and events are presented in a single key, in accordance with the official ideology. There is no freedom of speech or plurality of opinions in totalitarian regimes, so it is not surprising that a person who has heard only one point of view from birth will very soon come to believe, quite sincerely, that everything is indeed as they are told. Another instrument for creating the correct person with the correct way of thinking is mass terror. Totalitarian regimes do not tolerate dissent and do not hide it. Supporting the wrong viewpoint or someone the state considers an enemy can result in the loss of property, freedom, or life. Here it becomes clear why totalitarianism belongs specifically to the 20th century. Creating an ideology and finding enforcers who will imprison and execute for non-compliance is not difficult. The issue is scale. Effectively spreading an ideology and ensuring that everyone lives as prescribed is possible only with relatively modern technologies: radio, television, railways, automatic weapons, and so on. Repressing 100 people is one thing. 100,000 is quite another. How can one avoid confusion and understand that what we are dealing with is precisely a totalitarian regime and not something else? All conditions must be met. A state can be considered totalitarian only if it has an official ideology, propaganda that spreads it around the clock, a single party with a leader, total control over information, and unapologetic violence against dissenters and anyone deemed suspicious. Incidentally, this lack of restraint is itself a characteristic feature of totalitarianism. Totalitarian regimes do not conceal their tendencies and always act openly. They do not pretend to be democratic with elections. They openly call enemies enemies and treat them accordingly.